Judith Barsi was a child star in the 80s who was known for her roles in The Land Before Time and All Dogs Go to Heaven, but behind the scenes, her life was anything but a fairy tale. Before I begin, I want to give a trigger warning. There are elements mentioned in this video that may not be suitable for certain audiences, so please keep that in mind before continuing. Judith Barsi was born on June 6, 1978 in Los Angeles, California. Her parents, Joseph and Maria Barsi, fled their home country of Hungary in the wake of significant political and economic turmoil. Joseph and Maria fled to America where they were determined to give their daughter a better life, and of course, every opportunity that they never had. When Judith was just 5 years old, she was discovered by a talent scout at an ice skating rink. The first thing people recognized is that she was very small for her age, but soon she would flourish into a very talented young actor. And this made her a favorite amongst filmmakers who oftentimes put her in roles that were intended for younger children. Judith's talent was undeniable, and she quickly began booking commercials, TV shows, and films. By the age of 7, she was earning over $100,000 a year, which would be equivalent to approximately $250,000 to $300,000 a year today. This amount of income was very impressive, and it came from securing roles in popular shows like Growing Pains and Cheers, as well as major films like Jaws: The Revenge. But beyond the blinding lights of Hollywood, Judith's success came with a dark and tragic secret. Her father, Joseph Barsi, struggled with alcoholism and violent tendencies towards Judith and her mother. Joseph was extremely controlling and abusive to them both physically and emotionally. He resented his daughter's fame because it made him feel like he was less than, like he wasn't good enough. And he blamed Maria for all of the problems that their family had faced. And unfortunately, as Judith's career grew, so did this abuse. Joseph Barsi would oftentimes make horrifying threats towards Maria, saying that if she ever tried to leave him, he would take her and Judith's life. Soon, many of the people that Judith worked with started to notice her showing signs of severe distress while on set. They would find her pulling out her eyelashes and saw her body change due to emotional overeating. Eventually, this became too much for Maria to bear. So despite all of the threats that Joseph made, she sought out for help for herself and Judith. She confided in friends and even contacted Child Protective Services, but the authorities failed to intervene effectively and labeled their situation as just domestic problems. This allowed for Joseph's behavior to continue and to worsen. Tragically, the signs were there, but nobody wanted to act on them. During this time, Judith booked the voiceover role for Anne-Marie in the movie All Dogs Go to Heaven. One of her final scenes in the movie is particularly emotional for me. Judith recorded the heartfelt bedtime scene where Anne-Marie, the little girl, comforts the main characters before going to sleep.
You go to sleep, huh?
Charlie, will I ever see you again?
Sure. Sure you will, kid. You know, goodbyes aren't forever.
Then, goodbye, Charlie. I love you.
Yeah. I love you too.
Tragically, shortly after completing the scene, Judith would go home and her father would do something that is just unspeakable. On July 27, 1988, in a horrifying act of violence, Joseph Barsi murdered Judith and her mother. After the murders, he stayed in the house for 2 entire days before eventually dousing their bodies in gasoline and setting the house on fire, then using the gun that he used to take his wife and daughter's life to take his own as well. The severity of his actions was a culmination of years of physical and emotional abuse. The timing of her death adds a haunting layer to Judith's final performance, especially when her co-star Burt Reynolds had to complete his voiceover work to All Dogs Go to Heaven without her. The emotional weight of having to finish this film, while also dealing with the grief of her loss, was far too substantial for anyone to bear. He even spoke publicly about how difficult it was to continue working on this film under such heartbreaking circumstances. It's no secret that Judith Barsi's death sent shockwaves throughout Hollywood, sparking conversations about child protection and the responsibilities of the industry in safeguarding its younger stars. But as we know in 2024, that wasn't always the case in the years that would follow. Judith's final work, All Dogs Go to Heaven, was later released, and her character Anne-Marie became a bittersweet reminder of the talent that was lost too soon. Judith Barsi's story is a haunting reminder of how the pressures of fame, coupled with unchecked domestic abuse, can lead to unimaginable tragedy. It's a tale that's still relevant today and is a reminder of the importance of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. So if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic abuse, please reach out to the sources available to you, such as the National DV Hotline, and if you're in Dallas, Texas, there's a great organization called The Family Place that handles issues like the ones that Judith and her mother went through. And if you're someone who struggles with addiction or being the aggressor in these types of relationships, please reach out to sources like the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And remember, help is available, so don't wait to seek it. That being said, this concludes my deep dive into the dark side of film. Judith Barsi's story was a heartbreaking one to research, and an even harder one to film. No child or person deserves what her and her mother experienced. Like, just think about it. Judith would have been 46 years old today. And it really just makes me even more sad thinking about that. So even 36 years later, may they both rest in peace.